Hello friends. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. "5 months ago, I packed up my old Ford pickup and drove east from Portland into the Cascades for what I told myself would be a 3-day solo camping trip. I was 33, recently divorced, and desperate to feel something other than paperwork and silence. The trail I picked was called Bear Hollow Loop, about 40 miles past a town named Estacada. It wasn't well known, barely showed up on Google Maps, which made it perfect. I'd camped since I was a kid with my uncle. I knew how to build a fire, track a trail, and keep myself alive. What I didn't know was that some places aren't meant for company, not even your own. The Thursday morning I arrived, the parking lot was empty, except for one old Subaru coated in dust, like it hadn't moved in days. The forest was dense, tall Douglas firs rising into a soft blanket of mist. The air smelled clean, sharp with pine and wet earth. It felt like a reset button on my life. About 4 hours into the hike, maybe 7 miles from where I'd parked, I saw something that wasn't on my map. It was an old wooden shelter, half collapsed and tucked between 2 massive boulders. At first I thought it was just an illegal hunter's lean-to, but when I got closer, I saw something that made me stop. Across one of the planks, spray-painted in faded red letters, were the words, "Don't stay here after dark. He watches." The paint was cracked and sun-bleached, but the message was clear. I stepped closer, curiosity beating out caution. Inside, the walls were covered in carvings, names and dates, stretching back decades. Some were so old the wood had warped around them. The newest one I could find read, "Mark Delaney, 2018, followed by a series of tally marks. 22 of them, carved deep and sharp. That part unsettled me the most. Why 22? Nights? People? Attempts? I set up my camp about 300 yards away, close enough to see the direction of the shelter, but far enough that I couldn't actually see it through the trees. My spot was perfect. Flat ground beside a narrow creek, pine canopy thick enough to block wind. As I pitched my tent, I kept glancing toward where I knew the shelter sat. The rational part of me said it was just some old hiker's prank. Maybe a warning for bears or a superstition left behind by locals. But the tally marks, they felt personal. By the time I'd hung my bear canister and unpacked dinner, the sun had dipped behind the ridgeline. The light drained fast. Mountain dusk is different, heavier somehow. I cooked a bag of freeze-dried chili, the kind that never tastes right no matter how long you boil it, and sat by the creek sipping instant coffee. For a while, everything was peaceful. The air got colder, and the forest hummed with the low sounds of night. Then, around 8, I heard something. Footsteps. At first, I thought it was an animal. But no. These were slow, deliberate steps, circling through the brush just beyond the reach of my lantern's light. "Hello," I called out. "You lost!" The steps stopped. I listened hard, straining against the silence. The stream gurgled. The wind whispered. Then, nothing. I waited, flashlight ready, and finally told myself I was imagining things. Maybe it was an elk or another hiker passing through. But then the steps started again. Same rhythm, same distance, circling me, always just out of sight. Whoever it was, they knew exactly how far the light reached. I swept my mag light through the trees. Nothing. Just shadows that seemed to bend as the beam passed. The steps stopped. I forced myself to act normal. I hummed an old tune, banged my cooking pots together, and tried to look casual. But every minute felt longer than the last, every creak of wood or rustle of pine needles making me twitch. By 9:30, I was zipped inside my tent, knife in hand, flashlight beside me. I told myself to relax. I'd done dozens of solo trips. Fear was part of the package. But when I heard the zipper of my backpack, that metallic whisper of teeth sliding apart, my blood froze. The pack was 10 feet from the tent. I unzipped slowly, then burst out, flashlight up. The clearing was empty, but my pack was open, and all my gear, compass, rope, first aid kit, utensils, was laid out neatly on the ground in a perfect line. Someone had gone through everything, and my map was gone. That was when panic hit. Without that topographic map, I'd be gambling my way out of these woods blind. Someone wanted me disoriented. I yanked everything back into my pack, zipped it up tight, and dragged it inside the tent with me. The forest was dead silent now. No wind, no crickets, no creek. For hours I sat awake, listening. Then came 3 taps on the back of the tent. Slow, deliberate. I froze. A minute later, 3 more taps, this time on the opposite side. Then another, always in threes. Sometimes it was soft, sometimes sharp, like someone tapping with a stick. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My hand cramped around the knife handle. At one point, a small rock hit the top of the tent and rolled down. Then another. Then another. And then, through the thin nylon wall, a hand pressed against the fabric. Pale, 5 fingers spread wide. It stayed there for maybe 30 seconds before sliding away. That was the longest night of my life. I didn't sleep, not even for a second. Around 1 in the morning, everything stopped. No more tapping, no footsteps, just silence. When gray light finally filtered through the tent fabric, I checked my watch. 5:42 a.m. My flashlight batteries were dead, and my throat was so dry I could barely swallow. I unzipped the tent slowly, half expecting someone to be standing there. Instead, I saw that every piece of my gear had been moved again. This time, it was arranged in a perfect circle around the tent, each item spaced evenly. In the middle, stuck into the dirt, was a thin wooden stick. My missing map was wrapped around it, the paper torn and damp. 3 red X's marked it, 1 at the parking lot, 1 at my current location, and 1 over the shelter. And at the bottom, written in charcoal, was my name. Evan Clark. I hadn't told a soul where I was going. My permit had only a license plate. How did anyone know my name? I tore the map off the stick and stuffed it into my pocket, adrenaline surging. I needed to leave. Now. But before I packed up, I made the mistake of walking back toward the shelter. The fog had thickened, hanging low between the trees like smoke. The forest felt muffled, like sound couldn't escape. When I reached the shelter, I froze. New writing had appeared on the inside wall, fresh and still dripping in red paint. Evan Clark, 1. Below it were the same old names. Mark Delaney, 22. R. Cobb, 7. T. Furlan, 4. And underneath my name, carved deep into the beam, were tally marks beginning. A single one. On the table beneath it sat some of my gear I hadn't even realized was missing. My backup lighter, my multi-tool, and a single energy bar placed neatly beside them. The wood beneath was new, freshly cut, almost like someone had repaired this old structure recently. That was the moment I stopped trying to understand. I just ran. The hike back should have taken me 5 hours. I did it in less than 3. My lungs burned, my legs cramped, but I didn't stop to rest. The fog broke halfway down the ridge, but it didn't help. Now I could see shapes between the trees, pale flashes that moved when I did. Halfway back, I stopped dead. Someone had carved into the bark of a tree at eye level, the letters still wet with sap. See you next season, Evan? My stomach dropped. The cuts were fresh, no more than an hour old. I took a photo with my phone, hands shaking, and sprinted the rest of the way to the parking lot. My truck was still there, but under the windshield wiper was a folded note. Inside, written on old paper yellowed with age, was a list of names and years. Each had tally marks next to it. The last 3 names I recognized from the shelter wall, and then mine. Evan Clark. 1. I drove all the way back to Portland without stopping for gas, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds, half expecting someone to appear on the road behind me. I called the ranger station the next morning. They told me there was no such trail listed in their system anymore. Bear Hollow had been decommissioned 10 years ago after a landslide. No known shelters, no public access. When I checked Google Maps again, the pin I'd dropped before leaving was gone. Just blank green forest. 2 weeks later, I got a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was my compass, the one I'd lost that night. Attached was a scrap of paper that read, "You forgot this. See you next fall. MD." I haven't camped alone since, but every October, I still get a postcard in the mail. No message, just a photo of that same shelter. And each year, another tally mark is added beside my name. This year, we'll make 5. And every time I look at it, I wonder how many marks come before the last one. Last February, I drove up the twisting back roads of northern Washington, following a route so narrow and deserted that the GPS stopped updating halfway up the mountain. My cousin Eric had asked me to stay at his cabin for a couple of weeks to look after his dog, Ranger, while he and his wife took their long-delayed anniversary cruise. I had just quit my job at a small marketing agency in Seattle. The burnout had been eating me alive for months, so when Eric offered me a quiet escape surrounded by pine and snow, I said yes without hesitation. He'd bought the place 4 years earlier, a log cabin tucked on 12 acres of private forest land near Colville National Forest, 45 miles from the nearest town. His nearest neighbor lived down the mountain, a retired logger named Hank, who sometimes left fresh firewood on Eric's porch in winter. When I arrived, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The smell of cedar smoke, the crunch of snow under my boots, the endless hush of the forest, everything felt cleansing. The first few days passed beautifully. Mornings meant coffee on the porch, while Ranger sniffed around the tree line. Afternoons meant hiking through the property trails, and evenings ended with quiet reading beside the wood stove. By day 4, I started exploring further, tracing the faint deer paths that crisscrossed the property. Ranger trotted ahead, his nose low to the ground, tail swinging. The air was crisp, maybe 38 degrees, and everything glistened under a thin layer of frost. That was when Ranger stopped dead. He froze, hackles rising, a low growl rumbling in his throat. When I followed his gaze, I saw footprints by the creek, a trail of bare human feet, pressed deep into the wet mud. At first I thought I was imagining it. But no, the details were too sharp. Individual toes, arches, and heel marks. Whoever made them had been walking through near-freezing water without shoes. It made no sense. I crouched down. The prints weaved in strange circles, crossing over themselves, moving along the property line and back again, as if the person had been pacing or tracing the perimeter deliberately. Ranger stayed close to me after that, glancing toward the woods every few seconds. The forest felt heavier now, like it was listening. That night, I double-checked the locks, something Eric had said I wouldn't need to worry about up here. He'd laughed when I asked before leaving, "Man, you're more likely to get visited by a moose than a person." But moose don't walk barefoot through icy creeks. Dinner was leftover stew and half a beer. I was just washing dishes when Ranger lifted his head, ears stiff, his eyes fixed on the front door. Then came the sound. A slow, careful rattle of the doorknob. Not the wind, not the wood settling. Someone was testing it, just enough to hear the latch click against the lock. Ranger lunged, barking with a ferocity I'd never seen in him. I grabbed the flashlight from the counter and swept it through the front window. The porch was empty, the snow undisturbed except for a faint pattern of melted patches, bare footprints leading away into the dark. No coat, no boots, just feet. I stood there for a long time, listening. The wind had gone still. Even the trees seemed to hold their breath. Then, faintly, came another sound. A tapping. Soft, steady, rhythmic. It moved along the outer wall of the cabin, from the front door toward the side bedroom window. Tap, tap, tap. Each sound was spaced perfectly, like someone counting planks as they walked. Ranger pressed against my leg, trembling but silent now. I followed the sound from inside, step for step, until it stopped beneath my bedroom window. And then came silence, so deep I could hear my heartbeat. That's when I saw it. A single handprint appeared on the frosted glass, small, child-sized, perfectly detailed, pressed about 6 feet off the ground. Then another appeared beside it. Then another. But through the condensation, I could see nothing outside. No movement, no faces, just the dark outline of the porch railing under the motion light. I spent that night in the living room, every light blazing. Ranger stayed near the back door, staring at it for hours, occasionally letting out low growls that ended in whines. At around 3 a.m., something scraped across the back deck. Slow, deliberate, like fingernails or a stick dragged against the wood. When dawn finally came, I felt like I'd survived a siege. Outside, the snow around the cabin was a mess of tracks. Bare feet, dozens of them, weaving in and out of the tree line. That alone would have been enough to send me packing. But then I saw what hung from the low branches near the edge of the clearing. Children's clothes, a mitten, a pink scarf, a pair of tiny jeans, all weathered and dirty, fluttering slightly in the cold breeze. I stood there, numb, until Ranger started barking again, tugging toward the trees. That's when I noticed the carvings, dozens of stick figure drawings etched into the bark of the surrounding pines. Each one depicted the same scene, a tall figure standing beside smaller ones. In every carving, the smaller figures had X's for eyes. Some carvings were old, the wood darkened and split. Others were fresh, the exposed pine still bleeding sap. I followed them deeper into the woods and found one tree, covered from knee height to chest height, in a pattern of tally marks. Hundreds of them, grouped in fives, filling nearly the entire trunk. That was enough for me. I bolted back to the cabin, heart pounding, and started throwing my gear into bags. When I came back inside after grabbing Ranger's leash, I froze. The kitchen table, bare when I'd left it minutes earlier, now held a neat row of objects: a child's tooth, a faded blue ribbon tied around a small lock of hair, a tiny metal ring shaped like a heart, and a water-stained Polaroid, its image warped but still visible. It showed what looked like a group of children standing in front of a wooden cabin, faces blurred by time. Beneath the photo lay a piece of bark etched with stick figures, one tall, one shaped like a dog. Me and Ranger. Someone had been inside while I was outside. I didn't bother to pack properly. I grabbed the essentials, shoved Ranger into the back seat, and tore down the mountain road. Halfway down, my phone regained signal. Notifications flooded in, missed calls and texts from Eric. call me as soon as possible. Neighbor said someone's up there. Man, are you okay? I called him immediately, voice shaking. Eric told me that Hank, the old neighbor, had phoned him the previous evening. He'd spotted a woman wandering near the property around dusk, barefoot, wearing torn clothes, carrying what looked like a bundle of rags against her chest. When Hank tried to approach her, she bolted into the trees, moving faster than he thought possible for someone barefoot in the snow. He'd called Eric to warn me, but with no cell signal, the message never reached me. By the time I stopped at a gas station at the base of the mountain, my hands were still trembling. The attendant, a heavy-set man with kind eyes, noticed and asked if I'd come down from the ridge road. When I nodded, he went pale. "You're lucky," he said quietly. "That's where the Carver family used to live." He told me the story in a low, uneasy tone. 15 years ago, a woman named Martha Carver had moved up there with her 4 kids after her husband died in a sawmill accident. They tried living off-grid, homeschooling, hunting, and trapping. Child services got involved after reports of neglect, but when officials went up the mountain, they never found the cabin. Just bits of clothing and makeshift shelters scattered through the woods. One winter, hikers found the bodies of 3 children, frozen, starved, their remains spread across different parts of the forest. The youngest child and the mother were never found. Locals believed she couldn't accept their deaths, that she kept building shrines, dressing trees with her children's old clothes, searching for the ones she'd lost. Some swore they still saw her, barefoot, wild-eyed, carrying her baby, wrapped tight in rags. I felt sick listening to him. Eric and the deputies went back up 2 days later with Hank. They found the cabin open, footprints everywhere, furniture overturned. The items I'd described were gone, but on the kitchen counter lay a crayon drawing on torn paper. 5 stick figures stood in front of a crooked house, 1 tall, 4 small. The sheriff's department searched for 2 more days. They found a shallow cave half a mile north of the property, filled with hundreds of bark carvings, like the ones I'd seen on the trees. Near the back, wrapped in old blankets, were toys, shoes, and hair ribbons belonging to the dead Carver children. Eric sold the cabin within 2 months. The buyer was some developer from Los Angeles planning to demolish it and build a luxury rental. Eric never mentioned the real story, and I can't say I blame him. It's been almost a year now, but I still dream about those handprints on the window, appearing one by one, too high for any child to reach. Ranger never recovered either. He won't go near wooded areas, and sometimes, in the middle of the night, he'll sit facing a dark corner and growl softly, as if something's standing there, waiting. The sheriff's office eventually closed the file. No current evidence of trespass or threat. But Hank says hikers still find new clothing shrines each winter, further down the mountain every year, like she's wandering closer to civilization. I think about that sometimes. What grief can do to a person left alone too long in the dark. And when the wind rattles my window at night, I swear I still hear that soft, measured tapping, counting planks, just like before. I'd been freelancing as a UX designer for almost 3 years when everything came crashing down in early 2023. My biggest contract ended without notice. My car needed repairs I couldn't afford, and my roommate moved out overnight, taking half the furniture and leaving me with double rent. By March, I was running on caffeine and panic, scrolling late-night rental listings like they were therapy. That's when I found it. A small cabin listed under Silver Ridge Stays, located deep in the Ozark foothills of Arkansas. It was only $180 a week, utilities included. The photos showed a cozy wooden cabin with a wraparound porch and a stone chimney. surrounded by green pine forest, fading into blue mist. The listing title read, "Artist's Retreat. Total solitude. Perfect for creative work." There were no reviews, no host photo, just a simple username. Silver Ridge Host, and a contact number. I should have taken that as a red flag. But when you're broke, the word cheap sounds like salvation. The host messaged back within minutes of my inquiry. Their replies were short and polite. Payment through the app. Key is in lockbox by gatepost. Drive safe. No small talk, no weird vibes. It felt transactional. The drive from Little Rock took nearly 5 hours. As I got closer, the cell service bars dropped away one by one. The road narrowed until it was little more than a dirt lane, winding through pine and oak so thick it blocked out most of the daylight. I stopped at a rundown gas station in a town called Miller's Creek, the kind of place with a single pump and a flickering "open" sign that buzzed louder than the radio inside. A teenage cashier looked up from his phone when I showed him the cabin address. He frowned, then called to an old man stocking shelves near the counter. The old man squinted at the address for a long moment, then said quietly, "That's up past Blake's Hollow. Ain't nobody lived up there since the Langfords." I asked what he meant, but he just shrugged and handed my phone back. Cabin's cursed, son. Or maybe just unlucky. Folks hear things. Best head back before dark, I laughed awkwardly, mumbling something about online listings and weekend retreats. But the boy at the register didn't laugh. He just said, "If you really going up there, keep your windows locked." People hear voices in them woods sometimes. The driveway was more of a tunnel through overgrowth. Branches scraped the sides of my car like fingernails, and the gravel popped under my tires. When I finally saw the cabin, it looked ordinary. Old but sturdy. The same green metal roof from the photos, a porch swing, a few stacked logs beside the steps. The key was right where the host said, inside a small black lockbox tied to the gatepost. When I opened the front door, the hinges creaked, but everything inside was spotless. No dust, no cobwebs, just the faint musty smell of an old home that hadn't been opened in a while. The furniture was rustic, dark oak chairs, a plaid couch, a thick quilt on the bed. On the kitchen counter sat a small wicker basket with instant coffee, granola bars, and a folded note that said, "Welcome to Silver Ridge." There was Wi-Fi, surprisingly strong, though every website took forever to load. I told myself the lag was just bad rural internet. I spent the afternoon unpacking, made coffee, and sat near the window overlooking the woods to start on a logo project. The forest looked endless, a green-black ocean that swallowed the horizon. For the first time in months, I felt quiet. That feeling didn't last. Around dusk, while reheating some soup, I noticed something odd. The front door had a brand new padlock latch on the inside, chrome bright, the kind that still smells like hardware store oil. I was sure it hadn't been there when I came in. When I looked around, I realized every window had the same thing. Small steel latches with open padlocks dangling from them, all of them positioned to lock from the inside. Whoever installed them hadn't been trying to keep someone in. They'd been trying to keep something out. My stomach sank. I tried calling the host through the rental app. My message wouldn't send. Then my phone froze for a few seconds, showing the words, "Connection lost." By the time I restarted it, the sun had completely disappeared, and the woods outside the window looked like a single solid wall of black. That's when I heard it. A faint murmur, like someone talking under their breath. It was coming from beneath the floor. At first I thought maybe it was pipes, or wind through the crawl space. But the sound rose and fell like speech. Pauses, responses, even the occasional chuckle. There were multiple voices, at least 3. I crouched and pressed my ear to the hardwood floor. The boards were cold, unnaturally cold, and I could feel a slight vibration under my cheek. Rhythmic, steady. When I followed the sound toward the kitchen, the floorboards changed color. Newer wood, darker stain. When I tapped them, they sounded hollow. The moment my knuckles hit, the voices stopped. Just silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I stood there in the middle of the kitchen, barely breathing, until a smell hit me. Damp earth. Rot. Something metallic underneath. I backed away fast, bumping into the counter. My phone buzzed. For one stupid, hopeful second, I thought maybe it was the host finally replying. It wasn't. It was a push notification from the rental app. House manual updated. Please secure all interior locks before midnight. Do not attempt to open the cellar door beneath the kitchen. This is for your safety. That line wasn't there before. I checked my phone clock. 9:42 p.m. The word cellar made my skin crawl. I hadn't seen any cellar door. Not yet. The wind picked up outside, brushing tree branches against the roof. Every creak made me flinch. I decided I'd leave first thing in the morning. I wasn't about to drive those mountain roads in the dark. I tried distracting myself with work, but the Wi-Fi went dead completely. My laptop screen flickered, showing static for a second before shutting off. Then came the footsteps. Slow, uneven, from below. They started beneath the kitchen, then moved toward the living room, dragging, like someone pulling a heavy leg. I froze in my chair, listening. Each step creaked the floorboard beneath my feet. The steps stopped directly below me. That's when I heard breathing. Shallow, raspy, and close. I couldn't help it. I whispered, "Hello?" The breathing paused. Then softly came a reply. A whisper too quiet to understand, but definitely human. That was enough. I grabbed my coat, my phone, and went straight for the front door. But my car keys weren't where I'd left them, not on the hook, not in my bag, not in my pockets. I tore the place apart looking for them, but they were gone. The windows wouldn't open either. The latches that had hung loose earlier were now snapped shut. The padlocks turned and locked tight. I started hearing the murmurs again, rising, overlapping, faster now. Then came the smell, the same damp earth, stronger this time. And something else mixed with it, like embalming fluid or old chemicals. At 11:30 p.m., the floor began to vibrate. Tiny ripples moved through the wood under my shoes. Light flickered from the cracks, orange and unsteady, like candle flames. The murmurs turned into a chant. Words I couldn't make out, rhythmic and low. One by one, the padlocks began to close on their own. Click. The kitchen window. Click. The back door. Click. The bedroom latch. By the time the last one, the front door, snapped shut, it was 11:58. I could hear something scraping under the kitchen floorboards now, hard and deliberate, like nails dragging along wood. Then came the knocking. Not frantic, not random. Measured? Intentional. Each knock landed under a different board, moving across the floor like someone testing the strength of the planks, like they were searching for a weak spot. And that's when I saw it. The faint outline of a square trapdoor, barely visible under the kitchen table. It wasn't there before. Or maybe it was, hidden by the rug I'd moved earlier. The chanting stopped all at once. The air seemed to hold its breath. Then something hit the trapdoor from below. Once, twice. The boards bulged upward slightly, and then, at exactly midnight, everything went silent. No smell, no light, no vibration, just stillness. My phone came back to life, Wi-Fi bars flickering full strength. My missing keys sat neatly on the kitchen counter. The padlocks now hung open again, keys in place, swinging slightly as if someone had just let go. I didn't pack, didn't even shut the lights. I ran. The drive down that dark road felt endless. I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting headlights or someone running behind me. When I hit the highway, my phone buzzed again. 16 missed calls from an unknown number. I didn't answer. Later, I listened to the first voicemail out of morbid curiosity. It was nothing but static, and underneath, barely audible, the sound of breathing, deep and synchronized, just like before. I moved in with a friend in Fayetteville a week later. I never went back for the deposit. I tried reporting the listing, but the app said it could not locate any property with that ID. 2 months later, a new ad appeared on a different rental site. Same photos, same cabin. But now the description included one new line, greater than perfect for travelers seeking uninterrupted solitude. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I hear faint knocking beneath the floor of my apartment. Steady, patient, counting planks. And I wonder if Silver Ridge ever really let me leave. I was living with my girlfriend, Emily, in a cramped second-floor apartment just outside Roanoke, Virginia, when this happened. We'd both been working ridiculous hours. Her at a hospital, me at a print shop, and by late September, we were both burning out. It was her idea to take a weekend drive through the Blue Ridge Mountains, just a day trip to breathe fresh air and get away from the constant noise of the city. We left just before sunset, one of those spontaneous decisions that start with, let's just go for a little drive. The plan was to follow Highway 47, a narrow 2-lane road that twisted through the ridges before connecting back to the interstate. I'd driven it once before, in daylight, years ago, but never at night. By the time we hit the base of the mountains, the radio had gone fuzzy. The air grew colder, sharper, carrying that damp, earthy smell that comes just before nightfall. Emily had her shoes off, her feet on the dash, humming softly along to a song that had long faded into static. The road climbed higher, curving around sharp bends, where the guardrail clung to the edge of the cliffs like a warning. Every few miles, there'd be a faded sign riddled with bullet holes, or a mailbox belonging to someone who clearly didn't live there anymore. Civilization fell away fast. Then we saw the lights. Hazard lights. Slow, steady flashes of amber cutting through the trees about a quarter-mile ahead. At first, I thought nothing of it. Cars break down on these roads all the time. But as we drew closer, something about the scene felt off. The vehicle was pulled tight against the rock wall, its trunk slightly open. The driver's door hung wide like someone had just stepped out. And there, just at the edge of the blinking glow, was a man. At least, I thought it was a man. He stood perfectly still, facing the trees. Pale jacket, jeans, head tilted just slightly to one side. I slowed down instinctively. Emily straightened in her seat, the hum in her throat dying mid-note. "You think he needs help?" she asked quietly. I started to nod. Then the man turned. He didn't raise his hand. He didn't call out. He just pivoted, slow and deliberate, and began walking backward into the trees, disappearing between the pines as if the forest had swallowed him whole. No flashlight, no phone light, just gone. The hazard lights blinked on behind us as we passed, painting the road in rhythmic orange and shadow. I caught Emily's reflection in the side mirror. She was still staring out the back window, eyes wide. "Why would he just walk off like that?" she murmured. I didn't answer. The part of me that wanted to turn around was small and quiet. The rest just wanted to keep driving. We rode in silence for a while. The road narrowed, winding deeper into the mountains. A thin fog had started to gather, pooling low over the asphalt. My high beams caught flakes of mist, tiny glittering ghosts spinning through the air. And then, somewhere to our right, I heard it. Crunch, branches breaking, something moving through the woods. At first I thought it was an animal, maybe a deer startled by our headlights. But then the sound came again, closer this time, and stayed with us, matching our speed. Emily noticed too. "Do you hear that?" I nodded, easing my foot onto the gas. The car climbed faster, the engine whining. The noise didn't fade. It followed, steady and deliberate, the rhythm of footsteps crunching over leaves and snapping twigs. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Something pale slipping between the trees, keeping pace just beyond the guardrail. A flash of fabric, the faint shimmer of something metallic under moonlight. Not running, not chasing, just following. Emily's hand shot to my arm. "Don't stop," she whispered. "Please, don't." We hit the next curve hard, tires squealing. For a few seconds, the woods fell silent. Then it came again, on the other side of the road this time. "Did it cross?" she asked, voice cracking. I didn't know what to say. The road had no shoulder, no break in the guardrail. For it to cross, it would have had to move through us, or underneath the road. I gripped the wheel tighter, eyes fixed ahead. The headlights stretched far into the bend, lighting nothing but endless trees. Then came a sudden flash, something pale and vertical darting between trunks, faster than anything human. The noise of cracking branches grew louder, as if whatever was out there was circling, closing in on both sides. Emily started to cry quietly. "Please just get us out of here." The words barely registered over the sound of the engine straining up the incline. My mind scrambled for explanations. Hunters, pranksters, drug runners, but nothing fit. There were no houses up here, no campsites, no reason for anyone to be walking these woods at night. The incline peaked suddenly, and the road dipped into a downhill stretch. I pressed the brakes, careful not to skid. The forest opened slightly, revealing a sliver of sky bruised purple and black. That's when we saw it again, standing in the middle of the next bend, maybe 50 feet ahead. Same pale jacket, same stillness, this time facing us. I slammed the brakes. The car fishtailed, gravel spitting under the tires. The figure didn't move. For 1 sick second, I thought we were going to hit him. But before the headlights reached his face, he turned sideways and walked backward into the trees again. Gone. Just like before. Emily screamed. "He's toying with us!" I didn't wait to find out. I floored the gas. We sped through the curve, my eyes darting between mirrors. The hazard lights from that first car were long gone behind us now, swallowed by the fog. But we weren't alone. Every few seconds, I caught flickers of movement alongside us again, low, fast, deliberate. Something was running, keeping pace. By then, my chest felt tight, my throat dry. My rational brain had shut down completely. Just wanted to get off this road. We reached a sign that said, "Runoff area, 2 miles," and I clung to it like hope. But the forest wasn't done with us. A loud thud hit the rear of the car, hard enough to jolt Emily forward. I glanced at the mirror, but saw nothing. Just the road, empty and dark. Then another thud, this one on the passenger side door, like someone slapping the metal with their palm as we drove. "Stop it!" Emily cried, covering her ears. "Make it stop!" I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But the thought of stopping was worse than anything. The noise moved around us, circling, until suddenly, everything went silent again. The forest, the wind. Even the engine sounded quieter, as though the air itself was holding its breath. We came to a wide gravel turnout meant for truckers. I swung the car into it and hit the brakes, turning the wheel so our headlights aimed back toward the trees. For a few seconds, all we could see was dust. Then it cleared. The trees stood motionless. The road behind us glowed empty in the high beams. There was nothing there. Emily was sobbing now, hands over her mouth. It was there. I swear it was. "I know," I said. My own voice shook. "I know." I killed the engine and sat there, listening. The silence pressed against the windows, dense and unnatural. No crickets, no wind, just stillness. Then I saw something. Not movement this time, just shape. A pair of faint impressions in the gravel outside Emily's door. Footprints, bare, wide set, angled oddly like whoever made them hadn't walked upright in a long time. And beside them, a trail of something dark, thin, almost black, leading toward the tree line. That was enough. I started the car, spinning the tires as we tore back onto the highway. Neither of us spoke for the next hour. We just watched the road, waiting for any hint of those amber lights again. They never appeared. We hit the main interstate just after midnight. The first gas station we found was bright and empty. I pulled over, hands trembling so badly I could barely turn the key to shut off the engine. Emily sat motionless, her eyes red and glassy. I got out and walked around the car, checking for damage. The rear bumper had 2 long streaks across it. Dirt, or maybe fingerprints, smeared like something had tried to grab hold. The passenger door had a dent, deep and sharp, right where Emily had been sitting. We didn't call the police. What would we even say? That a man, or something like one, had chased us through the mountains? They'd have called it fatigue, paranoia, or headlights playing tricks through fog. We drove home in silence, arriving just before dawn. I parked the car on the street and never used it again after that trip. Sold it a week later. For months, neither of us talked about it. But sometimes, when I couldn't sleep, I'd scroll through online forums, missing person reports, local ghost stories, even old newspaper archives. That's how I found it. A thread titled, "The Watcher of Highway 47." Started by a trucker back in 2003, it described a man in a light-colored jacket seen standing beside a broken-down car near the top of the pass. Every report was the same. He would vanish into the woods the moment you slowed down. And if you kept driving, something would follow. The last post was dated 2021. The commenter wrote, "Don't stop. Don't look back. Just drive until the road widens." Then nothing. Emily and I moved to the coast last year. We don't drive through mountains anymore, not at night. Sometimes, though, when fog rolls in heavy from the sea, I swear I can see faint orange flashes through the mist, steady, pulsing, like hazard lights marking a road I'll never take again.